Welcome to the F4 podcast, where your hosts, Brian, Brooke, Charles, and Vanessa, discuss all things faith, family, friends, and fitness. What is F4? Sometimes it's a glimpse into how we navigate the world, and sometimes it's a deep dive into how we handle the four main areas of our lives. If you want to have a healthier relationship with God, family, friends, and yourself, this podcast is for you. Thank you for joining us as we unpack this episode. Welcome to episode 8 of the F4 podcast. I'm Vanessa Giddens, one of your hosts. I want to thank you for listening to our podcast. And if you could, follow us on Instagram and like and share the podcast. We are on all of the listening platforms. And today, for the first time, we are also on YouTube. So if you found us on YouTube, hi out there. We're glad you did find us. If you could, like the channel, subscribe, and you will be updated with when we release new episodes. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, you can send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, or via email at f4ncpodcast@gmail.com. I'm joined here today by the rest of the F4 crew, my wonderful husband, Charles, and our dear friends, Brian and Brooke. And I'm excited to be here with them today talking about setting goals. I read an article, and I'm going to try really hard not to butcher her name. If you're out there listening, I apologize. Majulina Roy Chowdhury on positivepsychology.com called The Science and Psychology of Goal Setting. And she writes that studies have shown that when we train our mind to think about what we want in life and work towards reaching it, the brain automatically rewires itself to acquire the ideal self-image and makes it an essential part of our identity. If we achieve the goal, we achieve fulfillment. And if we don't, our brain keeps nudging us until we achieve it. I love the idea of setting goals. I think goal setting goes together with the concept of neuroplasticity that we talked about back in episode 5. The fact that you're never really grown up, and neuroplasticity, you can keep engaging your brain, making new connections. We have a giant goal board at the gym, and we understand all about the importance of setting goals, and we encourage all of our members at the gym to set goals. And the thing that kills me is most of them don't even know where to start. They don't know how to go about setting goals. They like the high fives and the cheering and the celebrations that occur when somebody achieves a goal and crosses it off the board, but they don't know how to set them. So they come to us as coaches and want to know how to set goals. So I became very intrigued by all the different processes and ways that you can go about setting goals. But I have a question for you guys first, before we get into all the sciencey stuff. The question that I have for you guys is, if your younger self had achieved all of your younger self goals, what literary or superhero or, TV character would you be most like today, or would you be today?
So this is embarrassing. So let me just start there. So the person that I thought of instantly was Pete Mitchell.
Who is Pete Mitchell? I'm showing my ignorance.
I don't know who
no
Pete
idea.
Mitchell is either.
Come on, guys.
Pete Mitchell is also known as Maverick in the 1986 hit movie Top Gun.
Oh. Shows how much I care.
Wow.
So when I was going into 8th grade, that movie came out, and I was not Pete Mitchell, but I wanted to be, and I guess the thing I did to try to make that reality happen was I tried to make my hair. It's not funny. Shut up. I tried to make my hair gel up a certain way, and it's really sad to look back and see what happened. And I wanted to be like cool with my bros and to be able to get the ladies. Again, I was not successful in 8th grade. I was as single as they can get. It was a sad existence.
Oh.
And I never achieved that goal, as you can see by my hairstyle today. But it's okay. I'm comfortable with where I landed. So that's my answer.
Okay.
How about you, Brooke?
Oh, well, now you're going to laugh at me.
Yep.
So this was a very hard question for me because I would say that it hasn't been until the last several years that goal setting or any of that has even really been a part of my whole existence. So I don't feel like I really set goals or whatever as a kid. But the first thing that popped into my head, and it's embarrassing, is Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, because I thought it would be great to be a doctor. And also having kids. Like, I always wanted to have kids. I always wanted to be a mom. I don't want to live on a prairie, though. So that would not be great.
That was Jane Seymour, right?
She's the one
Jane
that has
Seymour?
2 different colored eyes. Yeah.
Does she?
Yeah, she
Okay.
does.
All right.
I find that fascinating about her. But,
Okay.
yeah, so I guess that, because,
Heterochromy.
yeah,
Well, look at you. Fancy.
she knows the words.
She's fancy.
So now I'm really interested to know who her literary or movie character would be.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Wait, before she goes, I want to say that with her glasses, with her saying heterochromy. All right, go ahead.
All right, well, I have 2. And I couldn't really decide because they're very different. And you guys are going to laugh at me now. The first one is Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Yeah. What? Why are you looking at me like that?
She wanted to be a man.
No. I don't even understand.
That's
No,
what,
I don't even
that's
understand
his
that.
face over
Like,
there.
what?
From the time I was very young, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And I think even before I knew it was called neurosurgery, I wanted to be a brain surgeon. And I also, at a very young age, was interested in a lot of metaphysical kinds of things. And so I think if you combine the two, if I was what my little self wanted to be, Doctor Strange would be pretty accurate. The other one was maybe Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy. Why are you laughing at me?
Because why?
You know, because Charles wrote down Lita Ford.
Yes, right. Like, Meredith Grey. So you could be with McDreamy? Is that?
No.
Oh, no? That's
No, just because I could see myself being a med student living in a house with a bunch of people and dealing with all sorts of weird, random things. And McSteamy all the way.
Who? I don't, which one is that? Which one is McSteamy?
I don't know his name.
Oh,
The second one to come along.
I don't
Not
know.
Patrick Dempsey.
Not Patrick Dempsey.
Don't know.
I don't know his name.
Huh.
Okay, so who's yours?
I had 2.
Okay.
Really thinking about it, I probably had more than that, but I have 2. So the first one, and this is going to be funny for a lot of reasons, but Pele.
Oh, that's not funny.
You look like a Pele.
Don't I? Exactly, right?
Well, I mean, that aside.
Yeah. We play completely different positions, but that's who I wanted to be when I was younger. And then the other one is like half the kids my age, Luke Skywalker. I mean, I don't know, for me that not always the hero, but figuring things out as he goes along. So that was kind of, those were just 2. And he ends up, being Luke Skywalker. So I don't know. That was it. Mine are not as interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about where we would be if we had achieved our younger self goals. What do you guys think is the main thing that prevents you from achieving your goals before we get into some of the different ways you can set goals to make them more attainable? What do you think gets in the way of you achieving your goals most frequently?
Lazy.
I would say myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good specific thing that gets in the way, but I think we get in the way of ourselves.
Well, I mean, I think for me, and I see it in other people too, like I want the outcome, but I don't necessarily want to take all the steps it takes to get to that outcome.
Yep.
So I don't know, is that lazy? Maybe. Or maybe I don't really want it as much as I think I do.
That's probably more accurate. I think. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. For me, fear of failure plays into it a lot, and we've talked about this, especially in the gym. It's you have to fail and fail and fail and fail. And how many times did Thomas Edison work on the light bulb before it worked? He failed and failed and failed and failed. And
then he stole the idea from somebody else.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I knew you were going to say that.
Sorry.
You're going to drop like a Tesla in there.
I'm not going to talk about Tesla.
She's a little bit bitter about it.
No, I find that very interesting, though. I find Thomas Edison history very interesting.
okay,
Because
we'll have to come back to that one
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Okay, but or Michael Jordan. How many free throws did he miss, before he started consistently? And even then, at the law of averages, he missed way more than he ever made. But I think I have a hard time if the odds are not in my favor. I feel like I have a hard time committing to it because I don't want to fail. And I have to learn to set that aside and be willing to fail again and again and again and again.
Totally right. I think a lot of times, to Brooke's point, I think what happens is we say we want something, and the minute that it gets hard, we just quit because it's hard and it's no fun. And, I mean, to that point, nobody wants to – you think about the whole image of Jordan outside shooting baskets in the rain, right, over and over and over again. I mean, nobody – or Tiger – I go back to the Tiger documentary where he's hitting balls on the range when it's just pounding. And he's doing it over and over and over again, and nothing stops him from that. Most of us aren't going to do that. The minute that it gets hard, it's like, well, yep, I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. That's I'm done.
Yeah, this example may not be one that you guys would gravitate toward naturally, but maybe some of our listeners would. I really like to track college football and what's happening in that world, and the sport is changing in just crazy ways, like name, image, likeness now, where players can profit from their name, image, and likeness by being part of commercials, or so boosters can come in and they can give players a certain amount of money for promoting their business or making social media posts. And it's just interesting to see how that's going to play out because that became official July the 1st. But the other thing that's been new is they have what they call the transfer portal. And so players can transfer to another school. And initially, they still had to sit out a year.
Right.
But now they get at least a one-time transfer to any school they want to go to. And it can even be in the conference, which before was like a big no-no. And all this has like come down in the last year. And so one of the things that's been tough about that for maybe some of your old school coaches to accept is that they're taking a player through a process and they're giving him some tough love. And he may not go, I don't like this. I can go over here and I'm being promised a starting position. Over here, I'm third string. And so I'm not going to go through the process and be developed in this process. I'm just going to jump ship and go over here. And we've seen guys that do this multiple times. So I think that's a really good example of that. That's a pretty modern thing that, again, some of our listeners are going to be tracking with that. Mm-hmm. And even if you're not a college football fan, I think you can understand that concept.
Yep.
All right. So this guy named George T. Duran coined the SMART rule in 1981 in a research paper of the Washington Power Company. And it's one of the most popular goal setting strategies used in from a psychological aspect used today. And so S is specific, and it means targeting a particular area of functioning. M is measurable. The results can be gauged quantitatively. A is attainable, achievable. So it's not being Dr. Strange. It's something that could actually happen. The R is realistic. They're practical and planned in a way that would be easy to implement in real life. I think that part's very important. And then T is time bound. So there's an element of time that makes the goal more focused. It provides also a time frame for task achievement. So when you think about those SMART letters, have you guys ever been asked to contribute to the achievement of a goal that doesn't line up with your core values?
I'm not going first on this one.
I can't think of a scenario when I've been asked to contribute to a goal. So,
You can't think of a scenario when you've been asked to contribute to a goal, or
Yeah,
just
no.
one that doesn't line up with your core values?
well, maybe one that doesn't.
So I'll go for me, and it's kind of it's a little out there, but when I worked for a large sporting goods retailer in the U.S., the CEO of the company decided they wanted to pull firearms in certain locations to, whatever the goal was to eliminate, modern sporting rifles, MSR, or whatever, to take those off the shelves to make America a safer, cleaner place because there's no firearms.
Make America safe again.
Yeah, make America safe again. And that was a tough, and it was really at that point, there's nothing I can do. So I don't know if it's necessarily a goal. It was not I guess it was a goal. It was a corporate goal. Not a goal for me, and one that I found very difficult to deal with. I know that that chain actually lost employees because of that. And not that there's, at the end of the day, I don't think they really cared. And it's just kind of like anything else. But that was a very tough time for me working in that environment, to being completely against what that was for me personally. So it was tough to go to work every day for a while. Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up, because when I was in college, I worked for a retailer, and one of the things that we had to sell were maintenance agreements. So I worked in the hardware department at this retailer, and if someone would buy like a saw, you would have to sell a maintenance agreement where if the saw broke down, that people could bring it back, and then we would fix it or we would replace it with no haggle. So I was really good at selling them, and they loved me because I was the top for the first few months I was there. And I couldn't understand why the percentages for other people were so low. Until one guy came up to me one day. He's like, "Man, why are you trying so hard?" I was like, "Well, this really helps the company, and I get a bonus." And he said, "Do you realize that if someone comes in and they complain hard enough, we just give them what they want anyways?" And for me, that was a problem. When I knew that I was going to go to the effort of selling someone something that they were going to spend their good money on, and we were going to take advantage of them essentially, and give someone who didn't do that, afford them the same privilege. So at that point, my belief was conflicted with selling these maintenance agreements, and my percentages started to die. And they were coming up to me. The manager was like, "What happened? What's wrong with you?" And anyway, I wasn't there much longer. But yeah, that definitely stood out to me.
Taking that into consideration, would you guys prefer in a group setting, and it doesn't necessarily have to be work, but it could be in other areas of your life, would you rather have group goals set for you, or would you rather be the one to set the group goals?
I think for me, it would be a combination of the two. Like, I can't say all one way. I think to some degree, I want to be a team player. And I don't think that I necessarily know all of the answers. So when somebody says, hey, this is our goal, this is what I think we should achieve together, I'm generally good to go along with that too, unless I bumped into something that conflicted with core values, then it may be a little bit different. But I also do want a degree of say in the goals as well, because I think if I'm just randomly going along with whatever somebody else thinks, then I don't have any ownership in it. So then I won't care about it as much. So if I have a little bit of say in it, it gives me a little more ownership in it. But I don't necessarily feel like I need to be the one calling all those shots. I'm not by nature super strategic, so I don't necessarily think I'm great at setting goals. People should do what I say. I tend to take a back seat on those kinds of things.
I can see that.
Yeah, I've been in a situation before where I've had goals dictated to me that I didn't agree with from management, and that was terrible. I don't ever want to be in that position again where it's being dictated to me in a business sense. I know you were asking actually outside of that. I'm okay with it being collaborative, but if the person driving that isn't really considering the group, I'm going to have a very hard time following them. If they want to be a dictator and they want to pretend like they're being collaborative, I'm out. And I've been in that situation too. So it's kind of like someone coming to you, here's the meal. Do you want salt or pepper? Or both? Acting like you have a choice in what you're going to eat. But they've already served you the meal. And it's like, get out of my face. You're being disingenuous in your presentation. So for me, that runs up one side and down the other, not in a positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both. For me, it's both. Hopefully you work for an organization that you share their vision and their values. And if you do, then I think that becomes much easier to buy into. Look at our current situation. I say our current situation, at least most of the table's current situation, right? So life-giving connections with Jesus, family, the community, right? So that's our overriding mission. It's a goal, really. If you think about it, it's a goal. But within that, within family ministry, then we have another goal to partner with families and to partner with kids. And then within that, I get to set goals specifically for our environment, the kids' environment, that, again, have to line up with the organization and the values, but I get to set specific goals within that overriding arching theme. And I think that's where the buy-in comes in when you work for a company or an organization, whichever it is, where magic can happen if you really truly believe in the mission and you get the autonomy to actually say, hey, this is how, here's our mission, and here's how I'm going to make that mission come to life. What do you think? And you can create goals specifically around that. I think that's a win for everyone, and you get to elevate the entire mission. Your goals get hopefully met along the way. But it's extremely important to have both of that, I think, and again, I go back and look at, Brian could say, hey, Charles, here's our mission. Here's our goal, right? And I've got to agree to that, or I'm not going to work there. Or I'm not, and there are splits that happen in organizations. There are splits that happen in business. That there's all kinds of. To your point, Brian, you've got to. If you don't believe in it, you can't work there. But I think it makes it much easier. And everybody, there's going to be different levels of goals coming from everybody in the organization. From Brian, and I report to Brooke. From Brooke, to then me, to the volunteers, to like everybody's involved in that. But they all have to line up for me. But I like a mixture of both. I would like to be able to set my own goals, and we'll talk about that probably a little bit more with it as we get into this. But setting goals within that organization's mission, I think, is important.
I want to say one more thing about that, because we may have people who are in an organization right now and on a team where they are in misalignment with that leader's mission and the goals with that organization, and they may feel like they have to stay there based on the income or not wanting to lose the relationships, or maybe they enjoy a lot of what they do, but there's some real misalignment. And sitting where I'm sitting today, I would say you need to really consider leaving. Either having conversations that get you aligned, or consider leaving, because you're going to be miserable, and so will the people you're working with and for. A team that's going in multiple directions, or at least two different directions, it's like me trying to do a split. There's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would just say where I sit today, I haven't always applied that. But if I'm talking to anybody who's younger than me or someone who's in that situation, I'm going to say you really need to consider either having hard conversations or going somewhere else, because life is too short to spin your wheels doing a split.
So how many years did it take you to figure that one out?
Way too many.
Kind of funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But fortunately, too.
Yeah.
It is sad that some people feel that they're stuck in that position and unable. And I do think a lot of it is going back to people don't know how to set goals properly and appropriately. And I was doing all this research, and you have the SMART goals, the SMARTer goals, then you have the ABCs of the goals. And I went down a bunch of rabbit holes too about neurotransmitters and the dopamine and the serotonin and oxytocin. Seriously, I went down a whole bunch of rabbit holes and
I believe you.
saw a
With
bunch
your glasses.
with my glasses.
Science.
Science. But there's so much psychology behind goal setting. And then, thank goodness for me, I stumbled upon this woman named Vanessa, but it's Vanessa Van Edwards.
Oh. I thought you were going to say Vanessa Giddens.
Nope. Her name is Vanessa Van Edwards, I'm not sure which, but she is one of the founding people from the Science of People, and she has a fabulous way of breaking down how to set goals that are going to be achievable and how to set goals that will release the neurotransmitters. And as soon as she started talking about that, I was like, oh, I read that already. Oh, this is great. Now it makes sense why we do all of these things. But she has a goal wheel, and I made you guys fill out this goal wheel. And
Yes, you did.
I did. And you guys were wonderful to humor me in filling out the goal wheel. And essentially, this wheel breaks down business, friends, family, personal passions, your spiritual self, and your health. And you're supposed to look at it as taking your emotional temperature when you are about to set goals for yourself. You want to rate how you feel about all of these areas, with 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. And there's a chart that you can sort of connect the dots and see where you want to widen your circle, because it's a wheel, so it's all these circles. And you can look at it and say, oh, here's where I need to widen my circle. I need to focus some of my goals here. And then she encourages you, once you've looked at it, you've looked at the big picture of all of those areas, she encourages you to come up with a phrase or a word that will then help you focus your intentions as you try to widen your circles. So we all sat down and we've already seen the wheels, and we know where we all sit number wise from 1 to 5 in all of these different areas. But I haven't heard your words or phrases. I know Charles's, but I live with him, so that's kind of so. But I'm going to start with you.
Great. So awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so it's one word, and it's trust. When you look at where I fall short on my wheel, and I fall short in every category, where I rank myself, but it's anywhere from a 3 to a 4. I know I wasn't a 2 in anywhere. I wasn't a 5 anywhere. But in business, friends, family, personal passion, spiritual, and health, I have to trust. And I think something that I have always struggled with as how I'm wired and what I do is I find it very difficult to trust. And I've also had some things happen to me in my life that makes that even more difficult, I think, at times. But really, if you look at every category on what I wrote down on why I wasn't a 5 in that area, it's a question of really trust and faith, but trust, kind of hand in hand with that. But when you look at, let's just say, I'll give an example. Business. Turning that completely our personal gym and focusing only on CVC in school, but only on CVC, that's trust. Like I've had to trust, I'm having to trust to get there. I'm not 100% there yet, but I'm having to trust that when it's, friends, learning how to be better friends or learning how to do friendship differently with you guys or anybody that I'm friends with, really, it's trust. That's the missing piece for all of getting your friendship to a 5 to me is the level of trust that you have in your friendship. Same thing with spiritual. I think I say I trust and I want to trust, and I always there are times that I think I've trusted more than others. Mm-hmm. Right now I feel like I'm trusting more, but I'm still. Am I waking up every day and really doing that? I like to say I am, but there's room to get better there. So for me, it's just trust. I've got to do a better job of trusting everything and everyone around me. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. I think as long as you're including yourself in that.
Sure.
I think that's important too.
It is.
Brian, what about you?
So my word was rest. And like Charles said, I thought I said it really well. All my circles are impacted probably negatively by the lack of rest that I take. My word for 2021 was relax because I suck at it. And Brooke, sometimes I feel like this is a cruel joke. We have a shower, and in our shower, there's a word that says relax. And I feel like it's just a reminder every time I'm in the shower. Relax. It's going to be okay. But I need that. I joke about it, but I need that. And so one of the ways specifically that I know I need to rest was revealed to me last summer when I was reading a book. And one of the things the author talked about in this book was the importance of taking a Sabbath, the importance of taking a 24-hour period to basically say that I'm trusting God and not having to rely on my activity to make it all happen. And part of my recovery, I guess, and my woundedness in my life is that if I don't do it, if it doesn't happen with me, it won't happen. And it all rests on my shoulders. And that's a very faithless way to live. It's a very not trusting way to live. Mm-hmm. And so it is connected. I think what we'll see is probably all of our words are connected to trust. So yours is like the alpha word. Alpha. And
it's good you got to go first, so nobody took your good answers.
Thank you.
But Brooke, we talked about this last night, and it was really good for us to have this conversation because there's no way I can actually try to implement some kind of 24-hour period, let alone a 5 or 6 hour period of rest in the week without us being on the same page because our lives are so intertwined. So I'll hand it over to you because you may want to elaborate on that, or you may have a completely different word that we didn't talk about last night. So I'm going to put it in your lap.
Oh, well, you guys did a great job of coming up with one word. I could not be very succinct in my word or phrase. It's more like a sentence. But what I came up with was make time for what matters most, not what feels most urgent. Because every single one of my things was something that, well, and I'll just give you an example in the health one. I need to go to the doctor. I haven't been to the doctor in over a year, maybe over a year and a half. It doesn't feel urgent.
Is that why you've been foaming at the mouth?
Right? All kinds of things going wrong. It doesn't feel urgent, so I haven't made it any kind of a priority.
Yeah.
But it's one of the reasons why when I went to take my temperature on this wheel, I couldn't give myself, a perfect score because I'm like, well, I don't really know how I'm doing. I haven't been to the doctor. There may be something that I can't see. And it just hasn't felt urgent. So I need to, in every one of these categories, I could boil it down to that. Make time for what is most important, not what feels most urgent. And so it's not a word, but it definitely goes along with the rest as well. Mm-hmm. That taking time to rest doesn't usually feel most urgent, even though it may be the most important thing. So definitely relates.
Yeah, and there's a lot more I could say about it, and maybe there's going to be opportunity to speak to that a little bit more before we're done today, but definitely on the same page here, which helps a lot.
And I really thought this exercise was good. At first I was like, because I struggled with that phrase. I struggled with it a lot. Like, how are these things connected? I don't see how they're connected. And then once I saw the connection, wow, this is really good because that will help me stay focused and focus my energy on the choices that I make if I'm viewing them through the lens of what is most important, not what just feels most urgent. That definitely helps me take the kinds of steps that I want to be taking and need to be taking so that I achieve the things or have the outcomes and the results that I desire to have. So
I just had a vision. Don't scoff.
I'm not.
You just jumped with surprise.
So one of my goals is to develop a teaching team at Connection Valley to where it's not just me teaching all the time.
Right.
And so you've got either a message or a series that needs to be shared right there.
Oh boy. That wasn't on my goal.
Aren't you happy now?
Just careful. You always get yourself more things to do.
Hey, your group goal was just given to you.
Yeah.
Your goal was set for you.
Okay, well.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
I do that. Wait a minute. Does that make me the dictator?
Maybe.
No.
Perhaps. No, you
No.
always give me a voice. Well, most of the time you give me a voice.
60% of me, 50% of the time.
If you say always and never, then we know you're lying.
Right.
So
It's not accurate.
It's not accurate.
Okay, so Vanessa, what about you?
All right, so I struggled as well for a word, and I boiled it down. I'm gonna have to explain myself a little.
Do you have
here.
a really big word that none of us are going to know what
No,
it means?
I do not.
Because
Probably.
I do not. I boiled it down
the
to
glasses.
leave her alone about the glasses.
It's very scientific.
Unfortunately, it's not because I'm not smart. It's because I'm not old.
I choose to see the smart side.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So I boiled it down to 2 words. Aim higher. When I was looking at and it started as aim for the higher purpose. That's how it started. But I figured I could boil it down to just aim higher. And when I was looking at my wheel and taking my emotional temperature, there was a whole lot of make time. And there was a whole lot of be intentional. And so the purpose behind why I would do what I would do there came to the forefront for me. And I think it's important for me to aim for that higher purpose. And one of the things we say at church, love better, be better, do better. And if you're aiming for that higher purpose, you're going to be able to do all of those things with intentionality and striving to get it done the right way for the higher purpose. Not, I need to call my dad because I need to call my dad. No, I need to call my dad because I need to connect with him, and I need to make sure that, we stay in communication with each other, because it will benefit both of us, not just because it's my dad and I should feel the obligatory
Yeah, and then
call
what does that
should be
communicate
made.
to your dad about how you feel about him if you're reaching out?
Right. That he is important. And also at the gym, It's Altius Fitness and Nutrition, and Altius means higher. So I've just decided aim higher is my phrase.
Charles made a face.
What?
Tell us what that face meant.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. What do you mean it's fine?
No, it's good.
Okay.
I think, that's good.
Okay. All right. So now that we have our emotional temperature, to me, okay, so there's a word. It's endowment, the endowment effect. Once you've stated your intention and stated your goals, then the endowment effect takes over. And that's when you start to not want to let go of those goals. And Vanessa, the other Vanessa, says that you should write your phrase and stick it on your mirror, and write your phrase and put it on your bookmarks, and write your phrase here and there and everywhere, and have it be something that you're confronted with on a regular basis as you go throughout your day, so that as you set goals, even if your goal is to make sure that you call somebody back, or you're reinforcing that mantra, if you will. And then she says, as you set the bigger goals, you need to work on also setting micro goals. So if my goal is to connect more with my dad, well, I have a really hard time finding time, making intentional time to connect with my dad. And it's because a lot of the time I have during the day is spent with up to 15 other people in my face, and it's not or my time is going to be limited, because what if we do get into a deep conversation and now I have to cut him short because I have something else I have to do. I have to get out of the car. I have to go into coach class. I have to, all of these things. So instead of putting off achieving my goal, I have to instead break it down and set a smaller goal. I'm just going to call my dad and let him know I only have 10 minutes, but I wanted you to know I was thinking about you today. So how's it going? But then I've already given myself the opportunity to get off the phone when I need to, because I've set it up front and now I've achieved my goal. So the good thing about that little micro goal, now I'm getting back into science. When you achieve a micro goal, your body emits testosterone when you win something. Okay, if you win,
that'll make you more like Dr. Strange.
it would. Okay, so
So your body emits testosterone.
yes,
Go for it.
and it makes you want to win again. So it makes you want to achieve the next small goal in process of achieving the bigger goal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It does. I couldn't help but think about something when you were at least using that scenario. It's exactly the scenario that Brooke just said. You have to create time to do the things that are the most important. And if you're always doing the urgent, you never, to your point, never have time to do the important.
Right.
But it also goes back to the rest. It's all the rest thing too, because it's all tied in. If you're never resting, if you're never taking time for yourself, if you're never taking time to stop, you're not going to have time to do the most important things, because you're always going to worry about the urgent things. And that's always going to take away time for rest. Always. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And not necessarily what you said. The science is fascinating. The fact that you use that scenario after listening to all that, I'm like, oh, well, duh. I mean.
Well, I wanted to ask Vanessa if she has thought of a creative way to display these words or phrases, because that's one of your gifts is creating. And so
I'm not creative, but I don't know if you have ever, I wanted to ask you, so now I'm tagging on to his question, but the whole idea of
Thomas Edison.
Sorry, I'm pulling a Thomas Edison. The whole idea of vision boards.
That would make me Tesla.
I don't know if you have ever done vision boards or spent time with that, but in the process of this, I ran across a turn your goal setting into a crafternoon, and I immediately thought of you.
No way!
Yes, and I thought of you. So it might be a way for us to do art and set goals
See?
all at the same time.
And you know what? My personal passion section was the lowest ranking section for me in my emotional temperature right now. So see, friends.
Me too.
You too?
Yours was
Yeah. My lowest was personal passions.
Yep.
I think that'd be interesting. So yours is personal passions, yours is personal passions. What's
Yep,
yours?
that
What's
was
your
my lowest
That was your
one, too.
lowest? Mm-hmm. Huh.
Yep. Well, on my wheel, it actually tied with business. That's because I suck at business.
Mine tied with business as well. Did it? Yeah, it did.
So
Mine didn't tie with anything.
Yours was truly the lowest.
It was truly the lowest.
I'm sorry, I hijacked his question, but
I haven't really done. I have a bulletin board in the office upstairs, and there's also a whiteboard underneath the bulletin board, and I have pictures stuck up there. Some of it is stuff that Parker has painted. Some of it are photographs, race medals. There's all kinds of stuff up there. It's not necessarily a vision board. I also have the goals. I have the goals that the women from the first women only class, I made them each write down a goal for that 6-week class. And I have their goals pinned to that bulletin board.
Yep.
so it's maybe half a vision board and half just things that are important to you
Yep.
to be displayed board.
Yep.
So I want you to think about something. What if you incorporated some kind of creative element to do this, but also with a forum to share goals in all these areas? And it can't be too many because, again, to aim higher, you have to aim at a target.
Right.
It can't be, I'm going to do everything,
Right.
because you're going to hit nothing. But the idea is that when you share that and creating these projects, you share those goals, then you have collaboration and support and trying to accomplish them where you're not trying to do it by yourself, because that was a big part of what I was reading. And maybe you're going there, but I was thinking it could all be incorporated into us creating art together, or whoever may be interested in doing this, because who really does this? Like, I don't know anybody.
I mean, that's the whole point of what we're talking about right now is people don't know how to set goals, and people don't know how to break it down. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
For me personally, having a way to incorporate that into something creative or crafty would be great. I don't know that I can necessarily envision Charles being excited about that, but for somebody like me, that would be a good thing. And there are like journals, that are designed for women that have kind of that.
So you're saying I'm not going to support your goals? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
No,
just checking.
she's saying that a vision board might not be the most ideal way for you
Yeah.
to gain the endowment effect.
Believe it or not, I actually have participated in vision boards, but that's okay. It's fine.
Was it on a computer?
Yes. What's
Not
your point?
the same.
It is the same.
Not the same.
You need to tap into your neurotransmitters.
Oxytocin
Does
is
it
the
have
group.
myelin sheaths around them too? I mean, so yeah,
And you could raise your testosterone level.
right. Because it's not high enough
Y'all
right now.
stop making fun of me for liking the science side
No,
of it.
no, it's great. No,
You're
Science.
totally making fun of me.
I'm not. I'm not. And by the way, being a part of a Pinterest thing is absolutely as hard on a computer as it is making a board. Just telling you that right now. Just telling you. Pinterest. Oh,
Pinterest is a black hole. Pinterest is a black hole.
Not for me. Not for me.
Because he completely avoids it.
Truth. Truth has been spoken.
If your spaceship doesn't travel toward a black hole.
We have one in our environment, and it was so funny because they started the volunteer started, and I opened it up, and I went, oh, I didn't even know what to do. It was I took a deep breath, and I went, yeah, this is still too much. That deep breath didn't help. I got to turn it off.
I love that people get energized by that.
I do too.
And they can help me make the world
Yes.
around me more creative and better. But for me,
I'm with you.
it's scary.
All right. So this brings up a good question. Are you guys more concerned with the process of goals, the process involving the execution of plans that form the habit, that lead to the achievement? Are you more concerned with the performance, so tracking the progress and giving a reason for continuing the work, or the outcome, the bigger picture goals that are the successful implementation of the process and the performance? You personally.
I can answer this one easily. For me, it's the outcome. Because without knowing where you're going, the process and performance don't matter. Because you're living out a process and you're evaluating something that doesn't take you anywhere specific. Without there being a goal in mind at the end, where are you going? So for me, that's my reaction. I know you've got a contrary view, but I would say I heard you breathe. I've been around you for 20-something years. I would say they're all important, and I wasn't trying to minimize the first two. Let me just make that clear. But without the outcome, to me, the first two are irrelevant. Go ahead, Brooke.
All I was going to say was that as I was going through the process and performance and outcome, one of the things that I came across in reading was that the process part of it, you have control over. You have complete control over the process. Performance, you have some control over the performance. The outcome, you have very little control over the outcome. So for me, I feel like that process piece is what I'm most interested in, the little pieces that I can control. So I'll give you for an example, saying like I want to read 20 books this year would be a more outcome oriented goal statement, instead of I'm going to read 10 or 15 minutes every day, which is a little more, it's not quantifying it in books finished, it's quantifying it in time spent reading. And if the point is reading more, then books read isn't necessarily the point. It's the time spent reading. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how my brain processed it. So I wasn't disagreeing with you, because I do think that you are very big picture, very outcome oriented. And I know exactly why you would say that. But for me, I guess it makes sense I would be on the complete opposite side of it. But that was how I processed that question and that thought and those different kinds of. So to me, not all of them are important. But those little pieces that I can control, really leading to behavior change, I think probably is what's most important to me when it comes to setting goals. Does that make sense?
I think you
Yep.
said that really well.
Yeah.
I liked how you said it.
Yeah.
That's good. That helps people like me. Because you can feel like a failure if you didn't get the 20 books.
Right.
Yep.
But you may have read 19.
Right.
And that's not failing.
And they might have been 19 huge books that
Yeah.
took you hours to read.
Harry Potter.
The Iliad.
You're like
War
way
and
up
Peace.
here. Maybe you're the scientist.
The Fountain Pen, or the Fountainhead, or
Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged. You know how many times I've tried to get actually all the way. I feel so bad as a self-proclaimed libertarian that I've yet to get completely all the way through Atlas Shrugged. So I've read most of it, but I've skipped around, but I've never read it straight through.
It's time to change the way you look at that goal.
Nope, it's not a goal. It's not a goal. Not a goal for me. I have too many things going on.
Then why have you tried to get through it so many times?
Because I should be able to get through it.
You should. So set a goal.
Yeah.
All right. So what is it for you?
He just said no.
Yeah.
It's not high on the priority list this
That's
year.
what I read.
It sounds like outcome is what he's focused on.
Well, it's funny that you say that.
He's gonna say, I agree with Brian.
Well, so you live with me, so I would lie. I would be lying if I said outcome wasn't important, because it is. But as I was answering this question, I just said outcome, but then I went back and wrote about process. To me, the way I see things, step by steps, how to frame things up, how to accomplish, I'm probably better at the process than I am of any of the three. Performance, whatever. I mean, the performance to me will take care of itself if you've laid the process out correctly and you have a vision, you have an outcome. So I think the performance is going to take care of itself. But for me, really probably thinking about it and framing it up, I guess, not the way I would have framed it up, but listening to you, you're right. You can't control necessarily. I've always in my head said I can control that outcome if I have the best laid process. But really thinking back on some of the things that I've never hit, that's not accurate because you can't. The outcome sometimes is going to change. Like things change, and it has nothing to do with your process that you put in place or your performance. So if you really think about it like that, I would say absolutely performance or process for me, but I would lie to say that they're
Yeah, think about this, like from a professional standpoint. I mean, how many times have you had a desired outcome and you had what looked like a great process and maybe performance to some degree that came from that, and yet you didn't hit the desired outcome and were maybe even graded poorly?
Yep.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking, it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, I think I've always been more performance minded. And some of that is probably all the years I spent dog training. You know, you need a visible, but it's not necessarily an outcome thing. It's not as much does the dog go on to have a wonderful life and everybody's happy all the time, as much as can I show this? Can I prove that the dog knows how to do this so the dog can go home? And I also, unfortunately, I think for me personally, I take that performance aspect into the gym quite often. And I think that for me is a more fixed mindset attitude to achieving goals in the gym, and I need to delve more into the process and embrace a more growth mindset.
Okay, Carol.
Yeah, well, thank you, Carol Dweck. But I think that that's where that comes, and again, it's not an outcome. It's not a bigger picture. I don't have any grand aspirations as an athlete, so I think I get stuck in the performance piece.
Yeah.
So, all right. So how do your friends and or your family help you to achieve your goals, or how do they sabotage your goals?
I love this question for a lot of reasons. Because it goes back to a podcast we did about friends and letting certain people in circles and having the right people around you. So I looked at this. First of all, my friends and family sabotage everything I've ever done. It's horrible. Just saying. I just want it out there.
Are you
Whatever.
saying your parents
Yes.
sabotage?
Whatever.
My parents, my wife, my kids, my best friends.
Whatever.
No. But I do think this goes back to I talk to people all the time. So does everybody here, right? And you're listening at home. You're like, yeah, I talk to people too. How many times have you heard, man, I just can't, if they could just support me, if they could just help me, if they could just this, right? Think about, that's all goal related. It really is. They may not have said a goal, but we think about it nutritionally. Oh, this would be so much easier if I could get my spouse on board, if I could get my significant other on board, if I whatever. So you're saying that who you have around you, they don't support you. That's what you're saying. You may not verbalize it that way, but that's exactly what you're saying. For me, my friends and family have done nothing but supported me with time, with money, with love, with, everything. I have not felt unsupported in anything I've tried to do really my entire life. I don't think I ever have, which is great. I mean, I think it would be miserable if that wasn't the case. I mean, there are things that you've said to me in the past where like, I don't think it's a very good idea, but it wasn't something that you thought I felt passionate about, so that was appropriate. I think the things that I felt the most passionate about, I've never gotten pushback from you, for anything other than support, or from you guys, or from my parents, or for anybody. You think about the last goal that I had, which was getting through college. When I decided not to go back to work professionally, at least in that world, and I was going to, take 4 years off, and like, hey, by the way, I'm going to be, a typical college kid, freeloader, right, and go back and do that. I mean. My parents supported me. You guys supported me. You guys supported me. Everybody supported me. No one said, hey, that's a stupid idea, bonehead. Like, no one did that. No one did. So, but I think it goes back to the people that you surround yourself with. And if you don't have that home life or that wider circle of people that you can count on, you are going to have a real tough time with goals, to me.
I completely agree with you. And I think that the only times where I haven't felt supported, it boils down to the fact that I haven't shared what my goals are. So I think anytime I have articulated where I want to be or what I want to do or what is important, I have received nothing but support. But if I have these unspoken goals that I want to achieve, but I don't ever tell anybody about them, there's no way people can be supportive. And they may be undermining those goals without even meaning to or knowing it. So that would just be, I agree 100% with what you said with that one little piece, that there have been times where I just haven't said it out loud.
You mean you didn't speak up?
All right. Big surprise.
Yeah, well, this even happened yesterday where you had expressed that you were feeling like, hey, I need some time to not have something to have to do. And so we had talked about meal prepping, which is not usually a short process. No. And where that was going to fall in the day was going to be at night when we had the most, I don't know if you'll call it free time.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest block of time that didn't, yeah.
So I rearranged my schedule I did all of it yesterday in the afternoon because I had yesterday off. And there are things that I wanted to do from a work standpoint that I went, no, I can press pause on this. And I didn't communicate that to her. I just did it. And we really had a great night last night.
Great.
I mean, it was nice to be able for her not to feel rushed, but I would not have done that had she not said anything. And so I think for Brooke, she's going to have to keep finding her voice.
Well, and it does go back to the conversation that we were having about rest and operating with a Sabbath and all of those things. And you talked about how you read that book last year and you still haven't found a way to make the time for that. And I think part of it, and you said it this way, I don't know if it'll be a direct quote, but sort of something to the effect of, I think part of the reason that we haven't, or that I haven't found the time for this, is that it's not something that we've discussed where we could make it a part of our lives. And I think in order for it to be successful, it's something we are going to need to do together just because of the nature of our lives. So
I'm curious, have you guys figured that out yet?
No, and interestingly, I'll let you.
Well, this was last night, so this conversation, but go ahead.
Yeah, so interestingly, the idea of Sabbath came up in another book that I was reading.
Really?
So, and interestingly enough, with this podcast, the idea of establishing and operating with a Sabbath, but 24 hours can be a big chunk to bite off. And so the writers were talking about start with 2 hours. Just pick a day, start with 2 hours. And then the next week, increase it to 4 hours.
Okay.
And then the next week, 6 until you get to the 24 hours. And so we were talking about that last night. And I think the good part about that is you could get to 8 hours or 10 hours and maybe be stuck there for a couple of weeks. But if you know the idea, maybe it becomes 10 hours and 30 minutes, you at least are able to be making some progress with those smaller steps instead of just one big giant 24-hour period.
It's interesting because it was like a flashing light is going off of okay, you read this a year ago, you've had this conversation, you're processing this in this podcast, you're reading a book and it's come up again, and it's like, okay, it can't be any clearer that this has to become part of our rhythm.
Yep.
And one of the problems that I'm identifying is that our primary workplace is in our home. And so we're probably going to have to get out of there a little bit more, or be able to help each other to say, you can't go over there and touch your laptop right now.
Yeah.
You can't go over there and you can't get in those papers right now, that stack of papers you need to go through and find a home for, or do the work to address. And so we're probably going to have to be intentional about getting out more, which we're going to have to plan for that too, because that brings another set of challenges.
Yeah. So we read the same book. I think a lot of us read the same book, and we came up with the same thing. And I've tried to figure that out as well. And kind of like you guys, I'm like, it has to happen. We're told it has to happen. Like, if you really think about it, we're supposed to do it. It's just like, where do I do that? I do like what you just said, though. Whether it was you or what you read, it doesn't really matter. That is a goal. Like, that's setting a specific goal every week or every 2 weeks, or maybe it's every 3 weeks or whatever it is. But we could write that down, and we could say, okay, maybe it's not on Sunday because technically we're working on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Right. So maybe it's not a Sunday. Maybe it's a Friday night at 8:00 to Saturday at 8:00 in the evening, and then I've still got an hour or two to prep for Sunday before I go to work on Sunday. I don't know how we make that work, but I think that would be a way to do it, to say, okay, we're going to go 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, or whatever, and build that in to go, okay, social media's off, the phone's off, we're not touching anything. We're going to sit, and then we're going to do what we're supposed to do as a family. So
maybe we
that's
could
great.
start with our 2 hours while we're sleeping, so then we're automatically successful.
Does that
from the
count?
beginning.
Yeah. So
I don't think that counts.
That's
No,
part of
me
the process.
either, me
That's part of the
either.
process.
That's right. That's right.
2 hours and then 4 hours. Is
But
process.
yes, the micro goal, setting the micro goal and setting yourself up for success with that micro goal, so that you have a win and you want to win again, and then your wins can be bigger. Yeah, I think that's... And I think it's great that you're sitting here talking about it. One of the things that I was thinking when I was thinking about how friends or family support or sabotage you in your goals, I remember multiple times as a child, I would say I wanted to do something or I wanted to be something, and I would get a very short, you can be anything you want to be. Well, really? Can I be Doctor Strange?
Well, in 2021,
You probably can.
No, but
there are some possibilities.
But I think
Oh.
I think one of the best ways we can support each other is to help each other explore how we can achieve our goals, instead of just saying, "Oh, you can do it. You've got this."
Well, and it's
That's a
like
great
goes back
thought.
to the whole Crafternoon thing. It may be more than one forum. That may be one of the forums of bringing goals to the table that you're including other people in, and saying, "This is what I'd love to do.
Yeah.
Can you help me get there?" Because I really think you're good at process. I was listening to you talk, and I'm like, you would really be good to have at a table to say, okay, this is a goal I want to accomplish. What are some of the things you'd be thinking about in terms of process?
Right.
Why wouldn't we leverage that? Because you've been gifted that way. I can come up with plenty of outcomes, but if I don't have a good process and
Right.
people around me to help me get there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just going to be a dream that dies.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. But I think going back to that, like, if you guys pick a Sabbath, that you pick a Sabbath, then our job as friends is to not
Right. We
Not-
can't be texting you and
not blowing people up and saying, "Oh, I know this is your Sabbath day, but
look at this meme.
right." Right? I mean,
Well, if it's funny,
if it's funny, it's okay.
if it's emotional, get it out now.
Get out. We don't want that.
You had conversations with multiple people the other day, and they all involve tears, and it's like sometimes you go, okay, I love helping people, but you can't do that all the time. It's just not sustainable.
Right.
Because on the inside, you're like, I'm crying on the inside.
It's like that conversation. We got done with a conversation. Brooke and I got done with a conversation with someone, And I looked at her and I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm lost. So to your point, yeah, doing that all the time, whew, it's hard. And I don't do it all the time, not like you. So it's like, but I told Brooke, I'm like, I got to figure this out. Somebody's got to help me figure this out. I don't know. I came home and talked to Vanessa. We did the same thing. I'm like, ooh, it's hard because it comes in.
And just to be clear, I didn't cause the tears.
No.
I know you weren't saying that,
Yeah, no.
but I feel like I needed to.
Sorry.
I needed to qualify that.
I was making all of these people cry.
No, so well, we do, but a lot of places have policies in place where male and female people in that kind of charged environment, and not necessarily charged environment, but in that environment, can't be alone with other people. And I think it makes perfect sense. So Brooke, unfortunately, has been on some of these conversations with me when I've been with females that I can't be alone with, for good reasons. So that was one of those situations, and it just happened to be that it was there were multiple conversations that week, and that was the last one that happened. And I was like, whew, like for 15 minutes we were done, I didn't know what to do. Like it was tough. It was a hard conversation.
How does your faith affect not only how you deal with, because I know it was a faith-based setting that some of these hard conversations were happening for you. How does your faith affect how you set goals and how you work to achieve them? There's I don't know what you would call it, but have you guys heard the whole cake thing? You ask God for a cake, and then you get upset with God when he gives you the eggs and the flour and the milk and everything, but he doesn't give you a cake. And when I was processing all of this, that came to mind. And I do think that I need to be, again, it's the micro wins and learning how to set the goals. And I need to be more intentional about thanking God for the eggs and the flour, and then celebrate myself when I put the eggs and the flour together. Yay, there's step one. And then when confetti, and then when when the cake's ready to go into the oven, and then I can trust that the cake is going to do in the oven what the cake is supposed to do. But so how does it come into play for you guys?
It affects everything I do. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's just the word faith because it's faith in someone. It's faith in Jesus, because everyone has faith in something. Whether they call it faith or not it's beside the point. Most people that would say they don't have a faith in themselves. And I was thinking about this the other day. I could think about how many mistakes people make, or how many issues people go through based on stuff that's happened in the past, things that are happening now, and worries about the future. To me, that would be overwhelming if the weight of all that rested on me, because I already struggle with it, having a faith in Jesus. I can't even imagine doing it by myself. And I think eventually for those people, they end up on medication, and not that makes them necessarily bad or anything, because I've been on medication. But they end up trying to talk to somebody and figuring it out. But they were made for God. They were designed for him. And so for me, it's that faith in Jesus affects everything. And my goals would be right up there at the top.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think then the goals that I set definitely flow from that overall connection of what matters most. And the verse that came to mind in thinking about this, actually I read this morning, is Colossians 3:23. Work diligently at whatever you do, as if you're working for the Lord rather than for people, and including myself in that. You know that everything that I'm doing, I should give my very best effort for and stay true to whatever the process is, whether it's putting the eggs and the flour together or whatever the process is, knowing that I'm serving Jesus, and that's the ultimate point. So, yes, very connected overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think mine have changed probably a couple years ago, I think, really, and really before that, when I decided, I really think my goals and how I set goals and what I do has changed when I decided not to go back to work. And the reason I originally decided not to go back to work was to help people nutritionally, and that's why I wanted to do that. And I think that changed kind of my mindset. And it used, my goals used to always revolve around making more money, achieving more titles, getting more, locations, more employees. And it really has switched over the last, I don't know, maybe you could correct me, but 5 or 6 years, where it's really more about being a better husband, being a better father, being a better friend, having better relationships. That to me is more important. It's funny, I had a conversation with somebody at the gym this morning, and they were contemplating, they have an interview coming up, and we're contemplating it. The money apparently is basically double what they're getting paid now, and there's the coffee maker every episode. But the conversation involved, what's the most important? Is it just important to have more money to double my salary, or what is the end goal? And they said, where do I really want to be long term? And it's not necessarily just about making more money. And I found myself having a conversation with this person. I'm like, man, it's great that you're starting to figure this out now at your age, because it took me a long time to figure out that, making more money, or having the comfort that comes with all of that, really can get you bogged down into places you don't want to go, and makes you not understand the bigger picture of why we're here. And I think my goals have changed, not just because of my faith. Really, I guess probably maybe my faith. Maybe that's really what's changed it. God's changed that viewpoint for me. Not necessarily he said it, it's not like, oh, you have to make this is the goal now. It's, how do you love people better? I think, and that changes how you make goals for me. What about you?
Like I said, it is the cake analogy for me. I haven't always been mindful of that. And I think recently I have become more mindful of that. And again, aiming for the higher purpose. And there's a lot as far as that goes. But I think breaking it down into the micro thing right now, it's recognizing even though I'm asking God for things, I need to recognize and be thankful for the things He's already given me, and be aware of how I can utilize those things to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. So, yeah. All right. What are your favorite quotes from speeches, literature, films, etc., regarding goals?
Well, you have your favorite one.
People can see us because we're on YouTube.
That's right. Sorry.
So you guys are acting like we're still not on YouTube.
I apologize. You're right.
So
we are on YouTube.
I'm very entertained by this. I'm watching. I'm going,
That's pretty funny.
they can see you right there.
He's
Sorry.
He's pointing out that I skipped a question that he obviously very much wants me to ask, but I'm just changing the order of the questions.
Wow, you assume I want you to ask that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did she assume correctly?
Okay. No, I don't know. I was just saying you skipped that one. I thought that was kind of important.
See, it's
Yeah,
important.
there you go.
You skipped the process.
All right. All right. Okay. One of my favorites is Michelangelo quote: "The greater danger for most of us isn't that our aim is too high and miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it."
It's very deep.
Yes.
You know what my top one was?
What?
You can do it.
So it's a movie day. Today's a movie day instead of a song.
He had
It's a
no
song.
songs today so far, but he did hit
Haven't
it.
heard a single song reference.
It's so motivational.
Water boy.
Wow.
No, so I actually wrote down begin with the end in mind. So that would make sense in light of what I said earlier about outcome. One of the things I've really enjoyed in a book I've been reading lately, and I shared this in our this current series of messages at church, is this quote from Richard Hipps that God is good and he's writing a good story with a good ending. And so I think regardless of where your goals are going, or maybe you haven't set goals, that's a great foundational truth to encourage you. But you can step into it now. So for me, it's a really positive, kind of goes back to, you can do it. And then there are a few scriptures I wrote down. You said literature, and I included the Bible in that. Proverbs 16:9, where King Solomon wrote, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. And then Luke 22:42, when Jesus was praying before going to the cross, saying, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. And I thought about you and the aim higher, and how I feel like that really ties in well to your aim and higher. It's not Vanessa's will. It's not Brian's will. It's his will be done. So, yeah, to me, that was really good. So those are my quotes I wanted to share.
The one that, as I was going through things that stood out, was a Bruce Lee quote. And it's, a goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at. And I think for me, the reason why that was impactful is that it gives structure to whatever it is that you're hoping to achieve. And whether or not you have the outcome that you desire, a lot of times that's not the point. The point is walking through that process and then doing with the eggs and the flour and all of those things. And who knows what happens? Maybe the outcome is better than you expect. Maybe it's worse than you expect. Maybe it's exactly what you expect. But that's really not the point in a goal. The goals, I think, keep you focused on, I guess, making the most of your time. Going back to my phrase, making time for the things that are most important.
I like it. You made me think of, there's another, and I'm not going to say it as succinctly as I read it because I don't have it in front of me, but in order for an arrow to fly, it must first be pulled backward. Kind of trusting the process and seeing what you've been given and trusting what's going to happen when you set your sight in the right way. Okay.
Yeah.
Your turn.
So it kind of goes back to trust, but facing the giants. So the death crawl scene and facing the giants. I think there's a lot to be said from just putting your head down and doing work and doing it with a blindfold on, but trusting that you're going to be fine, and not really knowing, I guess, not knowing the outcome, because he did. What was the kid's name? I totally forgot it now. I blanked it in the movie.
Big Tex.
Yeah.
I think it's Brock.
Is it Brock? Yes, it is Brock. Yeah, it is Brock. That's right. Look at you. But Brock puts the bandana on, gets a kid on his back, and starts going. He's originally saying to the coach, you want me to get to the 30 or the 50 or whatever he said. He said, I just want you to give it your best effort. He makes it obviously all the way down the field. For those of you that haven't seen the movie, I just spoiled like the best scene in the entire movie. But
it's been out a while. If people haven't seen it by now, then
yeah, I think it came out in like 03 or 05. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for me personally when I look at that, to say that I have to have faith. I've got to just do it. And that's blindfolded. To me, that represented when he put the blindfold on, I'm like, oh, yikes.
But you know what? His
Yeah.
coach's voice was there the whole time.
The whole time. Yep.
So it wasn't truly blindfolded
Yep.
because he had his coach there.
Yeah. So I wrote down having God tell you to keep moving.
yeah. See, look at you guys.
Look at that.
You didn't
Yeah.
even say that.
I didn't say it, but that's what I wrote down.
Look at
Having God
that.
tell you to keep moving and give your very best. That's it. Look at you.
Hey.
So yeah, that was it for me.
Confetti. Okay.
Pew pew.
All right. Let's let's rein it back in. And I want to know, as we wrap up this podcast, what your number one outstanding goal is right now. I'm going to send it back to you first because you thought this was important.
Well, yes, I do think my goals are important. Yes, I do. Overarching goal is helping as many kids as parents right now have a better relationship with Jesus and themselves. So that would be the overarching goal. But within that, we have got a really big initiative going on in family ministry, but especially with the kids is preteen ministry. So we're launching a preteen ministry at the end of August, middle to end of August, which is really consuming a lot of my thoughts and my time, and has been for months leading backwards, to try to capture some kids that I think get lost and may not ever come back. So that to me is my number one goal, is to launch it successfully in the right way, and having God obviously in the middle of that. But and the outcome, I guess, is going to be what it is. But I think it's important that we have the right processes in place, and I think we do, to kind of get that going and off the ground. So that's my number one goal right now.
Excellent.
Well, I spoke, or didn't speak, I guess. I wrote down my number one goal in reference to my number one deficit, because church has been a steady, like in planning this church, I've always had something to do and something to shoot for, and it's much easier for me to actually spend my time doing that. What's harder is establishing that rhythm of rest. And so when you say number one outstanding goal, that's where I gravitated to, is that establishing the rhythm of rest in tandem with Brooke, not in isolation. So that's my number one outstanding goal.
Yeah, and we actually talked about that last night, so I absolutely share that as number one outstanding. I think that's going to be critical for all of the other things that are important to us. And then personally, from a gym standpoint, making an effort to do my very best in this upcoming open season. And this is a goal that's been really challenging for me, just because I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like to have the spotlight on me. It's the hardest part about it. So having the support of you guys, and Charles, you mentioned, Brian said something about you being good at the process, dedicating time to put together a plan, and you guys working out with me and all of those things. Like that's the number one. And I'm not going to focus so much on an outcome as I am taking those necessary steps all the way through to be in a position to be my very best. So,
Brooke, I'm proud of you for putting that out there. Mm-hmm. I know that took a lot of guts.
Way to steal my thunder. I was going to say the same thing.
Well, and you need to have a chance to speak into it, but can you tell them exactly what you're shooting for?
Well, I would like to make it past just that first level of the open to the, to that next
quarterfinals.
Yeah, whatever
I think it's quarterfinals.
whatever it's called.
Yep. Second.
Yep.
So I would love to be able to do that. I bumped up in an age bracket, so I'm older now. So
well, and what people may not know is, since we have just adjusted programming for you, and we're trying to help you do that, you have been really reluctant to step into it, and for people to even know, because you don't want to be that center of attention. You don't want it to be like, oh, this is all about Brooke. And God has given you a gift to be able to do this sport at a level that's higher than most people, at least and I'll speak in just in our realm. And you were really close a couple of years ago to actually making it without intentionally training for it.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yep. So to have that opportunity is
this is an example of something I would definitely shy away from in the past. So actually stepping into that is new for me. It's exciting, but it's also terrifying. So I wasn't going to say anything about it, but then in this moment I was like, doggone it, I have to. Like I just felt this.
And that conversation has been going on off and on for months.
Yeah, beyond a year.
Yeah.
More than a year.
Before.
Year and a half at least.
Yeah, because
back to
last year it was no.
And we talked
Right.
about that actually because of what we were starting. We just didn't feel like we had the bandwidth.
Sure.
But it's like we need to make time. So we need to let you speak into
Yeah.
this now.
I'm so proud of you. I was sitting here thinking, I wonder if she's going to say anything about that, because I have seen you've almost put the invisibility cloak over what's been going on, even though the four of us have discussed it and we've known about it. I see you in the gym, and I feel like as soon as somebody else comes in, if they're asking about programming or whatever, you just put this little cloak on you and you walk away over into the corner, and you leave it up to him to say what's going on. And I'm super proud of you for now. The endowment effect is going to take place. You see,
I might still crawl under that invisibility cloak.
Does this mean she's going to grow taller?
No. No. She will still be squatty.
But thank you. Thank you.
So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Yay. My biggest outstanding goal right now is the thing that is super uncomfortable for me, because I feel like I'm not very good at it, but I feel like if I can grow the gym, if I can work, and hopefully with a little help from my friends. Ooh, song reference.
There
I
you
snuck
go.
it in this time. I feel like that will be something that will help me achieve all the other goals I have, like getting out of debt, like providing a space for spiritual growth for people. I think the gym has sometimes, covertly is not the right word, but has helped lead people down a spiritual path that they've needed to explore. Whether that's an overt action on our part or not, I think it's been really good for people in that way, and I would like to see more people helped in that way. And if the gym grows, then I will have more flexibility to pursue personal passions outside of the gym. So that's the big, outstanding, overarching goal, is to grow the gym. So
You got our support.
Yeah, I was
Thanks.
just about to say.
you guys are awesome. Okay. Are we done? I think we're done.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Do you guys have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think this was good.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Well,
If I do say so myself.
all right. Well, thank you all for taking the time to listen to our podcast today. Please follow us on social media, also including YouTube now. Share this podcast if you think it can be helpful to someone else, or if you just enjoyed it. And if you have any feedback, please provide it to us. We would love to know how you can connect better, how we can connect better with you, actually, is the way that should be said. And thanks again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on the F4 podcast.
Bye.